Hi everybody, today I'm going to talk to you about my Lightroom workflow from importing the images into Lightroom, how I go about picking my images, doing their basic editing, and getting them ready to be exported for the proofing, for the blog, and for the client. So here I have Lightroom 2 open, and I always keep my catalog and collections areas empty. Whenever I'm done editing a wedding or photos, and I've exported all the raw images with the XMP files attached, I get rid of it because I don't want anything to get lost. I archive all that stuff and back those up more than once. Honestly, I don't know a lot about Lightroom as far as the cataloging goes, and I haven't had time to just sit down and figure that part out. I have an idea that it would make things a little bit easier for me, being able to use the catalog. But I find that this works best for me the way I do things, and also I don't have to worry about backing up the catalog. Okay, so first I would want to import the images. So I would go up to File, Import from Disk, and then I have a folder on my desktop that I saved, Lightroom Workflow. Normally I would have the client's name, that would be their folder. And then inside that folder, I would have my images, my raw images, and my assistant's raw images. So I'm going to go ahead and load both those folders. And I'm going to go ahead and say the client's name is Rebecca and Craig. So we'll import those. That way I can always look those up in the keyword list later if I can't find them. But because I don't store all my images in here, I don't have trouble finding any images I need to work on. Okay, I just put some images together in a folder just to give you an idea of how I would do this. So I'm going to come down here to the collections and hit the plus sign and create a collection. I'm going to call this collection Rebecca and Craig. Create. And then I would take all the images in both my folder and the assistant's folder and highlight them all, select them all, and drag them into Rebecca and Craig. So now I have all the images in Rebecca and Craig all together. That way I can keep the assistant's pictures and my pictures together in a consecutive order. Now down here you want to make sure that your capture time, sort by capture time, is selected since we synced the cameras when we started shooting. So my first image here will be the first image down here, and on the left will be the first image shot for the day. Okay, so now I'm going to go ahead and start to pick the images that I want to keep. So I'm going to come down here at the bottom and select this button here, which will give me a preview of the whole picture of the thumbnail. And then I'm just going to scroll through and hit P on the keyboard for pick and U on the keyboard for unpick. And I'm going to go through and pick the images that I'm going to want to keep. So I'm going to pick that one. It's going to say flag as pick. And here I have two images. I like this one better, so I'll pick that one. And let's say I pick both of these, but I only want to keep one. See, I like that one better, so I'll go back to this one and hit U, and it removes the flag or removes the pick. And again, these are going in consecutive order where my assistant was shooting at the same time, so I can see both sets of images in consecutive order. Pick that one. Okay, so I've picked all the ones I'm going to keep, and that I'm going to give to, eventually we'll get to the client or the blog. This is just an overall, pick the best ones. Any ones that I unpicked, I'm not going to keep. They're not worth showing at all. They're blurry or they're duplicates, so we're not going to use those. Okay, so now that they're all picked, you go to this little icon down here at the bottom, the grid, click on that so that you have the ability to just show your pics. So we're going to go to Attributes, and we're going to click on the white flag, and that's going to show me all the flagged only images, or the picked images, and that's going to be flagged images of mine and my assistant's images. And now those are the only images we're working off of right now. So the next step would go to the develop setting, and I'm going to choose my first image to work on. Now I automatically go in here and I apply some automatic presets that I put on all my images. And I have those here on the left side. I have Amy's vignette, which is the vignette that I prefer to use. I give every image a bump of contrast, clarity, and vibrance. And then I do a quick little curve, and then I'll adjust them all from there. So I'm going to go ahead and apply those to each of the images by clicking on each preset. And then I will hit Control A or select to select all the images, and go over here on the right to sync. The synchronize setting box has the boxes checked as default to what I want. So when I am syncing some images that have local adjustments, some brushes, some cropping done, I don't want to sync other images because that wouldn't apply across the board. But as far as color, exposure, clarity, I can apply those across the board. So I'll hit synchronize. And now all the images are going to go through and have those three settings changed. So I'm going to come back here to the first one. And if I needed to do any adjustments, I would do that over here on the right. I might warm up the image a little bit. I might brighten it with the lights and bring down the darks and the curves and some of the shadow, and then just smooth out the highlights a little bit and maybe the recovery. It has a small tint of green, so I'm going to bring up the magenta a little. And then if I had any images that were in that same lighting, I would highlight those images, hit synchronize, and again hit synchronize there. So now this image was also in the getting ready salon, and you can see this is the original image. This is with those first three presets, and this is when I synced it up with the one prior to that. That one looks okay. I need to bring down the darkness and the shadows on the darks and the shadow on that one. Great. So now we'll keep going. This is also an assistance image, but I'm going to go, so I would still go ahead and edit this. Again, just conveniently keeping things in consecutive order. I'm going through and doing some really fast edits. These might not be images completely to what I would get them to if I were doing an actual edit for a wedding, but for time's sake. Okay. So again, I would keep going through and fixing the sliders on all of these, but I'm not going to do that at this time. So now let's say all the images are all ready to go. They've been color corrected, exposure corrected. They look great. At this point, I could do some spot removal in any dust spots if I needed to do so in the brush tool. I also do that sometimes after I've exported the images in Photoshop, just because you have a little bit more, some better tools to work with in Photoshop. So now I would select all my images because I'm going to get ready to export them. I'm going to export for JPEGs for the clients. But before I do that, I'm going to go back to my library and look at the flagged images, and I'm going to choose the images I want to turn black and white, and I'm going to give them a 1-star rating. So again, we want to see the full image, and I'm going to go through and hit 1 to set rating to 1 for the star, and we'll just go through and choose the images that I want to make black and white. And then again, come to the grid here on the left. Attributes is already selected. We're going to select 1-star rating. I just have 5 images I want to turn black and white. We'll go to develop, select the first image, and I have a digital black and white preset. I'll select all, sync, and synchronize. The thing we'll need to change with some of these is probably the contrast or the exposure, but these are looking okay. I'm going to bring up the darks and the shadows on this one a little bit and bring down the blacks. Same here, bring down the blacks. Need some more recovery in this one. And this one, the exposure needs to come down a little bit. So that looks okay. So before I export everything, I need to have all the images back. So I'll go back to library and uncheck the 1-star. You just click on 1-star and it'll take that application off. So I have all my images back. I will go ahead and select them all. File, export. I have my standard preset here. The standard preset. I'm going to choose the folder. I'm going to go to my JPEG folder and hit choose. I'm going to change the file name to 012812 with 3 digits. And 3 digits, the reason again why we do that is because we have 2 digits here for 22 images, so I want 3 digits, so I have a 0, a leading 0. Done. I do 80%. For quality, JPEGs at 300 resolution for good printing. I would hit export, and that's going to export all my images as JPEGs with the black and white and the color. Now if I were exporting for proofing, I have a user preset for the template here that's kind of helpful. I would hit proofing. I still have to choose my separate folder. In my Lightroom folder I have proofs, so I'll hit choose. Custom settings. I want to make sure that the files are named the same, 012812 with 3 digits here in the sequence. Sorry. Because when someone wants to order an image, order a print, I'm going to print from the JPEG folders, so I will need to make sure that my proofing folder numbers line up with my JPEG folder, so I'm printing the correct image. Now if I'm sending images out for proofing for their online gallery, I do not need to have high-res images, so they're 80% JPEGs. For my gallery website, they ask for 1280 pixels long edge, and then I do 7200 resolution for web images and sharpen for screen. Then I would hit export, and I'll export to the proofing folder. The reason again why we do that is because we have 2 digits here for 22 images, so I want 3 digits, so I have a 0, a leading 0. Done. I do 80%. For quality, JPEGs at 300 resolution for good printing. I would hit export, and that's going to export all my images as JPEGs with the black and white and the color. Lastly, I want to save these raw files with the attached XMP files so that I have the raw settings that I apply to all the files. So I would select them all again. Same thing, file export, choose folder. I usually make a new raw folder and hit choose. My file naming is just what I want. It's the same as the JPEGs and the proofing, so all of them will be linked, will have the same file number. You want to choose original file because they're originally raw, and then hit export. Prior to getting rid of my library folders, my folders here, my raw images, I would get them ready for the blog in their raw format and export those images as well. So I'll go over here to develop. These images have their exposure corrected and their contrast and everything that I would have done for the client. I'm going to go ahead and just do a couple of other edits to them before I would send them out for the blog. So I have some fun actions here, and here you can see some previews up here on the top as I hover over some of the presets, and I can select those to apply just to give them an extra added bump. So this is the image with the preset. This is the image without. I like that. We'll move to the next one. Now I could apply presets, or I could apply just some regular actions if I wanted to. I can do a combination of presets with my actions as well. just going through and selecting a couple options that I like to get the images ready to go up on the blog. Okay, so if I were done editing through all these images, I would again have to select them all, export them, choose my folder, come here to our Lightroom workflow, hit new folder, and they would go to the blog folder. And in that blog folder, I have an originals folder where I would choose to export them. That way, before I do any, these are the full res JPEGs of the images that I edited for the blog. I keep those always in the original folder, and then I would copy those into a separate blog folder where I would resize, sharpen, and get them ready for the blog. Once I resize these images and sharpen them, I can no longer use them for printing. And so I want to make sure that I keep a folder of originals that I can use for submissions, for printing, and things like that that I've already edited. And then once they're exported for the blog, and I've exported them for the client, I can go ahead and delete this folder, right click and hit remove, continue, so it's gone. And then if I ever need to import the images for some reason and use the edited raw files, I can always come back up to File, Import Photos from Disk, and find those raw files and import those. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching. Bye.